Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Dennis Devlin. I'm with Maersk, and I would like to introduce John Hark, who is Regional Director at Bertling Logistics and Adjunct Professor at Texas A&M Galveston, and one of the leaders in bringing up new talent into our industry. So John's going to moderate this panel.
Thank you, Dennis. I want to introduce our panelists for this very important panel of the show. So to my left is Ettore Banga. He's a logistics specialist with Air Liquide and has been out of school for how long?
About 3 years now?
3 years. Went to TSU and has a master's in transportation planning management. And to his left is Jackie Young Hall with the Port of Houston. And she's here to talk about, again, maritime education, what the port is doing, which a lot of people are not aware of, the depth that the Port of Houston is in the maritime education community here. And she is the Maritime Education Outreach Manager, and the department falls under the Community Relations Group within the Port of Houston. And then to her left is Casey Eckstein. Casey is the founder of WEMOS, Women in Maritime Operations. I recommend everybody follows that and gets involved. And she's also the founder of Eckstein Trade and Transport, a new company. So let's just jump into this. And I think I want to start by saying that the talent gap, of course, and getting young people and new people into the business is extremely important. And I always say that at shows like this panel should have the largest audience because it comes up in almost all conversations at the show, and it should be the biggest amount of people because it takes a village to get this done and everybody has a role to play. What we're hoping today is, let me see a show of hands of students in the audience. So that's great. We have a lot of students here, a lot of interest. I want the students to walk away with some actionable items. And then employers and adults, raise your hands. So you should also have some things that you walk away from, because I'm hoping you're sitting here because you want to get involved in fixing this talent gap problem. Start with just a few stats before we get going. Pre-COVID, I put a presentation together, and some consulting groups said that there were 6 openings to every qualified person. So there was 1 person for 6 openings. And that was supposed to go to 9 openings pre-COVID. I think that's probably gotten even worse. And then when we look at transportation in general, and that's a large bucket, and the port talks about this statistic as well. Over 25% of the transportation workforce, again, it's a large group of jobs put out by the government, are over the age of 55. And then when we couple that with a statistic the Pew Group came out with, back in 2011, 10,000 people started turning 65 every day. And that goes until 2030, at which point close to 20% of the US population will be over 65. So we have 10,000 people turning 65 every day. So as an industry, we're also fighting for talent against other industries. And all you have to do is Google IT talent gap, oil and gas talent gap, medical talent gap, law enforcement talent gap, teaching talent gap. They're all facing it. So we got to do a good job to get people not only in logistics, but our niche area of logistics, of project logistics and capital project logistics execution. So we sort of have an extra duty there. We got a great panel to talk about these things today. So I'm going to start with Ettore, who's the newest here in the business. And what have your observations been so far since you've been out of school working in the industry?
Thank you, John. I'm pretty delighted being on this panel here. Pretty much my observations have been noticing the fast pace and the complexities and a lot of planning ongoing for these capital expense projects in which I'm involved with. Heavy specialized cargo, a lot of relationship building, a lot of vendors, communication ongoing, a lot of contracts ongoing and everything. Traveling, which I like, and being able to be out there, being able to communicate with different vendors, suppliers, people at site, construction workers, everyone in the work field. These are wonderful experiences that I've seen, observations that I've seen. Um, yeah, little archaic processes here and there, a little more, paperwork here and there and all that stuff, and less digitalization. But I know with time everything will improve, and that's what I've been noticing.
And I'm going to start with you again. And I just want to do a little housekeeping. Casey has a flight to catch. So at 1:30, she's going to get up and walk off the stage. So when she does, just, don't worry, she's got to get to the airport. So just want to put that out there. No problem. So Ettore, when we talk about the young people, which is the majority of the audience here, and we have a great group that was at the Education Day this morning, what would you advise to them that if they're interested in Project Cargo and they walk around and meet people at the various companies, what do they need to do? Like, how can you advise them about getting started in this interesting niche part of logistics?
I love that question because it's dear to me. This is, for me, it started from here. It started from Breakbulk, this very convention on Education Day. And basically, what I would advise you guys to do is get out there, right? Network is very important. What it does is that it takes you out of the four corners of the school by getting to know more, getting to know who's involved, the certain type of job positions that are there, and what exactly project logistics is. So it's important for you to meet these professionals in the industry. Start getting involved. If you have issues with meeting certain people, there's nothing wrong with getting a mentor. There's nothing wrong. There's an initiative called the Collective whereby you can join and get connected to these mentors whereby they will help guide you. And if you want to get into the project logistics, be sure you want to get into it and work towards it. Ask questions about it. And these are the things that'll help you. And these are the things that have helped me to get to where I am today.
And Jackie, from your standpoint, you talk to a lot of students, at the high school level, at the college level. What is your advice for them wanting to get involved in logistics and especially this area?
Fearlessly networking. That is probably the most important thing. You've got to get out of your shell. We talk to our high school students about being part of a team. You have to be a team player. You have to be able to talk to people. We go out and with the Port of Houston and we mentor. We do things, we have opportunities for them to come to expos, to meet people. But one thing you have to do is fearlessly network. We not only start on the college level, we start high school and middle school. Because one of the things that a lot of people don't know is that if a student is going to choose this as a career, a lot of them have to choose it the March of their 8th grade year to go into career and technical education, to go into a maritime program, to go into a transportation program. And what were you doing the March of your 8th grade year? Figuring out what you wanted to do long term was not it. But we go out and we talk to students, and if they can talk to me and they can talk to other professionals, that's half of the battle.
Casey, from your standpoint, maybe you can talk too, especially because of WEMOS and the firm you've started now that specializes in helping women get into the industry and placing them. What's your advice as well for young people coming into the business?
Well, so to kind of right off of what they said, networking, but using that networking to figure out what interests you in the industry, because I think that is something that a lot of people don't like. For example, I didn't know what I was exactly interested in when I graduated, so there was a lot of failed jobs because it's like, this didn't interest me. I don't like that. But maybe if you could figure that out while you're still in school, you could save yourself a lot of time and trouble. I think that using that network also to get out there and go to a shipyard, go check out, go get on a barge, go get on a boat, and get out there and actually see it in person, then that'll also help you figure out what interests you as well, like what really kind of ignites that passion. Because what you are interested in might also not be what you're good at, but maybe you can find a happy medium, or maybe you can start directing your educational initiatives towards that interest before you graduate. I also would advise that while you're in school, go get a job or an internship at an operator, working for an operator, and learn there, and talk to every single person that works at that company about what they do, and maybe that'll help, direct you on what direction you would like to go, working for an operator. But basically just doing your research before you take a job.
And Toro, from your standpoint, fairly new in the industry, what's your advice? And I think you touched on it slightly. I don't want to lead you too much with an answer here, but how can industry attract young talent? Again, we're competing against last mile and pharmaceutical logistics and Amazon and general distribution. And everybody knows what supply chain is nowadays because of COVID. So specific to us with the breakbulk industry and capital project logistics execution, what's your advice as a newcomer? What attracts you and what can they do to have young people into this business?
It's a good question. I would say that have a lot of conversations and a lot of action items, particularly on a now strategy per se, instead of a long-term strategy on, hey, how can we achieve sustainability, right? Students want to be hearing sustainability. Students want to be hearing how are we achieving greenhouse gas emissions, carbon capturing and all that. They want to hear that. Companies,
Touched a little bit on digitalization.
yeah, digitalization, that's key. We got to streamline the processes. It's very important for us to start having softwares that can literally start making our processes in the industry easier in terms of communicating. Less being less dependent on emailing here and there, right? And having certain tasks and procedures ongoing, and a lot of scheduling involved with that stuff too. Competitive salary, I think that's very important. A lot of students, they see certain salaries in the industry and they kind of give them, they start to look at it and like, I don't know if I want to do this. So if the salaries could be competitive, that would be a very good way to attract the young talent in the industry. And also being open, being accessible, allowing students to come in, even if it's like for informational interviews, right? And giving them exposures to be at the ports, to see certain discharge. The students want to do that, but it's left for the companies to allow that to happen. And I feel like companies should start working on that.
And Jackie, from your standpoint, maybe you can talk a little bit about PHPME, because we know that's a great way for companies that want to get involved in bringing young people into logistics and maritime. Maybe you can talk a little bit about PHPME and that avenue for companies to get involved with solving the problem.
Sure. PHPME, Port of Houston Partners in Maritime Education. The port really started looking at talent gap and what the future workforce looked like back in 2009. So they got together key stakeholders in the industry, along with our academic partners, our federal partners, and really tried to figure out, okay, what does sustainability look like? What do these talent gaps are going to look like? And how do we educate the next generation? So PHPME is a nonprofit organization that creates a think tank. So these are our industry partners. These are our academic partners. And what we want to do is we want to introduce the students to these opportunities. We want to introduce them to education. But what we also have to understand is not every student is going to go to college. So what are these opportunities where they can, create an apprenticeship program for them, or create some type of way that they can start right after high school. So we got together and we created the Maritime Education Program. And along with, MARAD and some guidance from the Coast Guard, we have this 4-year pathway in high school, but we start in middle school. We start in elementary school. And it's like, what can you teach an elementary school student? How many of you, before you got into this industry, knew where the port was, or knew that the port exists? It creates almost a little over 20% of Texas's GDP, with 1.35 million jobs, and nobody knows it exists. Everybody knows where Shell is, everybody knows where Dow is, but do you know where the Port of Houston is and the economic impact that it has? So that's what PHPME does, and we get together and we help our colleges and universities and our high school students to really hone in on what the industry needs. So unless there's communication, we don't know what to teach them. So, we don't know that there's a digital divide. We don't know that there are things that are missing unless we have industry input. And so that's where a PHPME comes into play.
And I think, too, for the professionals in the audience, there's really two things as we've talked about. One is the company they work at, and they can get involved with PHPME. We have our meetings are open. They can get involved with the committee. We meet once a month. And they have the opportunity to get involved and speak to schools, and you call on the companies, your partners, to help out with different functions at the schools. But they also, I think you bring up a good point, they have an opportunity as well either to talk to their own kids, assuming they want their kids to come into the logistics industry or the breakbulk industry, but also if they have friends who have kids.
Yes.
And now that, a lot of people in the audience may not realize for the CTE programs, and if we talk about the greater Houston region, and we include Beaumont there, we have something like 10 schools, high schools with logistics and maritime programs. Some of those have officially partnered with the port, but those students, as you say, when they apply to those CTE programs where we typically run it, they need to know about it.
Yes.
And so not only can the professionals get involved with the colleges and get involved with PHPME, but I think you have a role to talk to other young people, because now when they're in junior high, they have to make this decision
Yes.
about where they're going to go. And maybe talk a little bit, that is a serious decision. They maybe leave sports, they leave band, and they go to that CTE program.
Right. A lot of parents, they know if your kid's going to go to DeBakey, your kid's is, going to go to the medical school, to the engineering school. But career and technical education, they have to choose it, as I said before, the March of their 8th grade year. And this is a big commitment for an 8th grader. Some of them come in their freshman year, but they do career and technical education programs. They don't have sports. They don't have band, but some of them are in schools that have those opportunities, and then some of them aren't. But it's really all about exposure. It's talking to your kids about, what do you want to do? We talk to a lot of students that are in sports, in band, and I always ask them, how many 40-year-old soccer players do you know? What's your plan B? So why not get a career and technical education while you are playing a sport? We had a high school student finish from one of our programs. He went to Maine Maritime. He played football. They paid for his scholarship. So there are opportunities out there, and PHPME is where we, really, hone in on what those opportunities are. John sits on our board, Peter is here. It's not so much about the talent gap. It's really about what kind of gap we're trying to fill. We want kids that are leaders. Are we creating leaders? That starts in middle school. That starts at home. We want kids that are team players. Are we teaching that? We do mock interviews. We help them with resume. We do job shadowing. We want to bring them out to your company so they see what they're getting themselves into. There's the maritime science side, and then there's the maritime logistics. For every one maritime transportation, those are your mariners, there's 9 logistics jobs. Logistics, transportation, distribution, global supply chain, project management. So not everybody is going to be on a vessel.
And also, when we talk about, I just lost my train of thought. When we talk about the jobs, it is important that, again, they make that decision early, but also that, again, we're also approaching the colleges and the high schools. And also now, a lot of the folks that are here attending the conference are from international locations.
Yes.
And other locations in the U.S. And I know recently you took part on an academic panel with other international areas around the world. And so it's not just Houston. I focus on Houston and what we have here, but we have a lot of people that come from around the country and the world. This is now a thing that's going on in other ports around the world, other universities around the world. So I think you would encourage them to look into, when they go home to other countries or other parts of the country, there's these programs going on in other areas too. Or start one if they're ambitious.
Yes, they are. And the interesting thing about it is that they're coming to us for advice. They're coming to us, how do we start a program? what do we do? You know, I just spoke to a coordinator of Breakbulk, and she was saying, we had a problem connecting in Rotterdam. How do we make that connection? So it's not just a Texas problem. It's not just a U.S.
Right.
problem. It's across the board. Everyone is having a talent gap issue, but how are we creating this next generation of maritime leaders? How are we creating the next generation? Succession planning is very important. I believe in mentoring. That is very important. You know, 50% of our industry is over 55. You know, of that 50%, 25% of them are ready for retirement. So if everyone who is ready for retirement just got up and walked out, where's this next talent pipeline? You know, as you said, they want to know about sustainability. They also want to know about diversity, equity, and inclusion. They want to know that they're included. They want to know that they have a seat at the table. And we've got students now that if we don't give them a seat at the table, they're creating their own table. And they're inviting us. You know.
That's a perfect segue. Casey, you've started a firm recently that's working on staffing with companies. So when you listen to this, you listen to what the port's doing, you listen to Toro as a young person, when you're speaking to clients now, potential clients about staffing and bringing people to work for them, what are you counseling them in order to be an attractive company for young ladies and professional women to go and just in general?
That's a great question, because it's one thing to find that person who has that passion for the industry, that wants to be in the industry, but I don't want to bring that person to a company that they're not going to be happy at. And I think that diversity is extremely important to the younger generations, Gen Z and millennials, as well as technology. And we're also very value driven, which can include sustainability as well. But I think that the younger generations are so technologically savvy that the archaic technology that we have in our industry is really not helping us when it comes to retaining the talent once they come on board. It also doesn't help with attracting them. Could come down to little things like social media. If someone's gets a job offer from a company and then they go check out their, and this might, again, it sounds little, but they check out their Instagram and it's total crap, they're going to be probably less inclined to go work for that company than the company who has a great social media platform. The younger generations are having brand awareness drilled into them at a very young age. So that's, again, goes back to making sure that you have that brand awareness out there for the younger generations to understand and learn about your brand before they're looking for a job. So I really think that our industry we're going to have a hard time retaining these younger generations if we don't make some changes when it comes to technology. I have a friend, she's in the audience somewhere, Serini Bujaj, and I'm sorry if I didn't say that correctly, but she is an entrepreneur, female entrepreneur. She's 29 years old, and she is off on her own starting a technology company called Port Lookout, and it's going to streamline the port call process. So she's achieving that through collaboration with different ship owners. And she's incredibly intelligent, but she's having a hard time with anyone wanting to make a change. And it's like, well, we have to move forward. We have to get out of using some of these archaic systems that have been around since the 80s. And I know it's going to be a pain to make the switch, but we have to make the switch if we're going to survive as an industry. It's extremely important. So for me, I think diversity and technology are very, very important to concentrate on right now. Sustainability, we just need to do a better promoting that we are the most sustainable form of transportation, moving on the water, that is. We need to make sure that the younger generations understand that. Also, the younger generations are very, they want to be a part of the big picture. So I think it's important to really drive that home with them. You know, look what we are doing, look what we are achieving, and you can drive that that big picture to them through things like social media and your brand and having a better website. My sister's in website design, and I was like, you could have an entire business and just redoing all the websites in our industry because they're pretty bad. And I hate seeing that because I know the company behind that bad website, and they are very successful, and it's a very healthy work environment, and no one ever, and hardly any turnover. But a Gen Z student is not going to be inclined to go work for a company with that type of social media presence. So
one thing the industry has to understand is that when you look at the current talent, we cross 5 generations. 5 generations. That's like working with your grandma, your mom, your crazy auntie, your sister, and then there's yourself. Not everyone is going to be eye to eye. A job previous to me coming to the port, I literally took a class on how to relate to a millennial. That was like a unicorn. It was like, oh my God, how do you do this, do that, and still stay on task? What are you looking at? You know, they were getting their job done. You know, they don't have the same work ethic that I have. You work, 40 years at a job, you get a pension, they don't have that mentality, So we've gotta not only relate down, but my advice to the students is relate up. Everybody's not gonna change just because you came on board. Learn how to become a part of the team before you make changes or before you want to make changes. I talk to kids about what's your brand. I've gone to, before you scare them in the interview, get the job, and then let's talk about changes. Don't come in day one and start talking about changes, because that right there will get you isolated real quick. And then us, over 50, over 55, yes, I am, and proud of it. I'm not afraid to teach the next generation. I want to teach someone who's going to come along and take over what I've created, and then take it to the next level. So don't be afraid to mentor,
I want to end because I think there's some questions, and Casey is going to walk off this stage in about 7 minutes.
Okay.
So I'm going to start with you, Casey. What's one thing that the students here today can do when they leave, and what's one thing the companies can do when they walk out of here?
So the students, I really encourage you to get out there and hit up people on LinkedIn. Come send me your resume. Let's talk. I'm here in Houston. I'm leaving to go out of town today, but I live in Houston. So I guess, kind of selfishly, reach out to me, ecksteintradeandtransport.com. Send me your resume. We could talk about your career goals. And then as far as for the companies, maybe it's as simple as hire a social media intern, get your website redone. It only costs a couple $1,000s to get your website redone. So, those are just 2 simple action items right there that could actually really help your company. So,
The Toro, something the students can do when they leave here and that the companies can do when they leave.
Figure out what you want to do.
So for the students first.
This is for the students, and basically I would want you guys to figure out what you would want to do and reach out to me and look into joining the collective and get a mentor from there. That's very important, and that will go a very long way in getting what you would want to achieve.
And companies?
For the companies, just be
One thing.
accessible. Be more accessible to the students, be open, give them a chance to learn. They'll come in and ask questions. Please allow them to get, informational interviews from you guys. It goes a long way.
Jackie, some for the students and some for the companies.
Well, all the students that know me, I'm all about fearless networking. You are your brand, and what does your brand say about you? It's not just figuring out what you want to do, figuring out what's available. Because right now there are 25 to 30 jobs that when you graduate or in the next 5 years, that probably won't even be here. But what's replacing them? You guys are the first generation to not know what it's like not to have technology. I remember party line, dial up, yeah. That's, yeah, I'm kind of dating myself, but yes, but network. Companies get involved. This is the next generation, whether you like it or not, and they're coming in and they're taking over. So we can either welcome them with open arms or, get pushed out of the way. But, you're more than welcome to be a part of Port Houston Partners in Maritime Education. Scholarships, paid internships. Students, can I hear it? Paid. Y'all want to be paid when you do an internship? Paid internships. Allow them to come and job shadow. You know, take one of them under your wing and say, this is what I do. This is the good, the bad, and the ugly. Just don't show them, you know, let's go to lunch. You know, no, it's not all about a lunch. So, but that would be my advice.
Thank you. So we have a few minutes. We have 3 minutes. Are there any questions? And I hope there's at least one student here that has a question for someone on the panel. So any questions? Right here. Okay. I think we have a microphone for you. And introduce yourself and let us know where you go to school.
I'm Nia Bailey. I go to school at the University of Houston. I'm doing supply chain management. And my question was for everyone on the panel. You guys were talking about Gen Z and millennials and how we are the new generation and we're more accustomed to technology and social things. So, what would be a good way to incorporate that into a company? Say you're doing an internship or you just graduated and you are trying to figure out ways to innovate your company or innovate your team.
Casey, you want to take that since you're going to have to leave soon?
Yeah. So I guess just to understand the question correctly, you're asking what you should ask the company that you're going to work for on like the systems they use, or?
So you've kind of already figured out those systems and maybe you want to implement new ideas.
Oh, okay.
Kind of like how Jackie was talking about refreshing the website, making the website new. How do you even go about that?
Yeah, well, like Jackie said, I would be patient and give it some time and kind of prove yourself there, prove, you know, that you're handy, you've been there a few months or something like that. And then maybe you can go and find, like, for example, if they have an outdated website, you can go and find a website that looks a lot better, that's in the same industry, and be like, which one looks more inviting to you, this page or this page? Or also get some feedback from others about how they feel, so it's not just your own opinion when discussing whatever the matter is. And I would also, maybe do, if it was like some sort of like archaic technology that they were using to communicate internally, maybe just always have a solution when you present the problem. So go and find, a better technology, shop it out before you bring up the problem. But basically have a solution for the problem that you're going to present and be patient.
Thank you.
Anyone else with a question? Over here.
Hello, my name is Denise Llamas, and I come from Texas A&M University at Galveston. My question is, I'm an international student. I recently moved here to the US. What would be a good advice for a person like me who's getting adjusted not only to the language but to the culture and also how everything works here? What would be a good advice for
Toro? You can relate to that.
Yeah, I think it still boils down to networking, and while you're doing that, you're letting that person know, hey, this is your situation, right? And so with that, luckily you getting connected to the right person, that person can definitely give you all the information and details that you need, let you know the type of companies that are employing international people and sponsoring them. They will guide you if it's the right person. That person would guide you for you to know all these things. But if I were you, I'd take an aggressive approach and network from today.
You can get involved in industry organizations, right?
And to add on that, I'm going to add one comment and then I have to step off. But WIMOS is the organization that I started back in 2017. It stands for Women in Maritime Operations. We are actually just starting to develop a mentorship program at WIMOS. So find us at wimos.org, that's WIMOS.org, and we're starting to bring in women who are interested in being mentored, and then we're bringing in women who are more senior in the industry to be the mentor. So with that being said, I'm going to have to
Go ahead.
skedaddle, but so nice.
I'm going to give you one more.
Thanks.
I would advise you looking into Young Ship Texas. There's ISM. There's ITMA, there's various associations that you can join, start from there, and also look into the collective as well.
You want to finish up with any comments on that?
Yes, it's really all about networking. You're in the melting pot. this Houston area is what the rest of the world is going to look like in the next 10 to 15 years.
Yep.
So we've got more nationalities, more everything here, you know. And yes, I'm a native Texan, so I'm a little biased, but literally networking is it, and don't feel like you're in it by yourself.
Thanks. We're going to end it there.
Uh-oh, we have one question.
Sorry, all right, we'll take one more. From Dory.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Dory Mika Nichols, but everyone may know me by Dory. I am a student at Texas Southern University, and I'll be a senior. I am a senior this year, and I'll be finished in May. But my question is, Toro, networking outside the four corners of your school. Why do you think that is important in creating a village of your own to stand out for people to understand who you are as a person? And Ms. Jackie, how can someone who graduated can go back and talk to that higher, the high school students, those students that's coming behind you at your school? How can you do those things for the both of you? Thank you.
Okay. Well, that's a good question. It's good to be well-rounded, and to achieve that, it's good to get different perspectives from different segments of the industry. You have the carrier section, you have the operations, you have the ship owners, you have the cargo owners, you have different fields. So it's important for you because you might be in a situation whereby the concentration, at school might be maybe a few things here and there. But it's highly important for you to be well-rounded. It's highly important for you to reach out to people who will give you different perspectives of this industry, and it will just help you out on a long run so that it will better help you make a good decision at the end of the day, and it will help you with your schoolwork at the end of the day too as well.
And Jackie, for the other part of that question, sort of giving back as they graduate.
When you always have this saying, once you get the elevator up, send it back down. But not only send it back down, ride it back down and get the next person. You all have an opportunity to go back to your high schools. You have an opportunity to recruit for your colleges and your universities. You guys have an opportunity to participate in PHPME. It's nothing but a phone call to say, hey, I want to go and talk to some high school students or some middle school students and let them know how I got to where I am. Believe it or not, you guys are going to change your majors 2 or 3 times before you graduate. You're going to change your jobs at least 6 times before you figure out what it is you want to do, and let them know that it's okay. It's okay to succeed and it's okay to fail. And this is the road that I took. It may be the road less traveled, but this is the road that I took, and let people know that, hey, this is what I did. You have to create your own path. And I always tell you guys, you have to figure out what makes you happy. You have to figure out how you make a difference, So that would be the answer to that question.
Thanks. So what I would say is all 3 of the panelists are always open to talk, both to companies that are looking for advice and students that are looking for advice. So as Jackie always says, fearlessly network. Everybody should be connecting with her. The companies here should be connecting with Jackie to work with the port, connect with your ports around the world, other schools, and you should be connecting with Toro. And Casey as well is always open to talk. So don't be afraid to take that step after you leave here and to take the next step either for your company or for you individually or for the students as well. So let's give a hand for our great panel. And take heed with the great advice that they gave today, both for the companies and for the students. So thank you.